Recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, I do agree with my colleague, Mr. Green. We do live in a different world. But Ms. Eddy, I want to address you first before I get into some of the arguments you may have heard. Well, let's just call them robust discussions. That's a more polite way. We have common goals. We have different paths of getting there. But I want to say thank you for sharing your very personal story. I want you to know I hear you. I see you. I believe my colleagues see you and hear your story. And I recently had a chance to, in my hometown, visit with an organization called Jubilee Ministries that is working at trying to get at that workforce housing. And they have been running into, like all of us, my family's actually in construction, all of us have been running into, on the development side, the difficulty of maneuvering past local governmental regulations to allow for affordable housing to exist. It's density issues, it's various elements of sort of over-engineering in a way. In fact, the National Association of Home Builders says that their estimate is $98,000 per house is the average added cost because of that those local requirements. So how have we attempted to get at that? I know my colleague, Mr. Barr from Kentucky, who has been on this issue for a long time as well, has a bill, the Housing Plus Act. I've been involved in this issue for a long time as well. And we know that there have been burdens that have been put in place, and Mr. Huizenga has talked about this, and Zandy and others have as well. Mr. Mitchell talked about that. We have some agreement here that we have to get at this. What we don't necessarily have agreement on is sort of the sources of inflation and what are some of the causes of that. And I know, for example, in building houses, supply has gotten tighter and it's gotten more expensive. Labor has gotten tighter and is therefore more expensive. We know that 70% of a barrel of oil, for example, is used for energy, but the other 30% goes into things like shingles and siding and PVC pipes, all right? And when we are constraining that by choice here in the United States by this administration, we are then limiting the ability to have affordable materials there. By the way, I ran this little formula past Chairman Powell last time he was here, how to explain inflation. And I estimate in various studies that we've looked at, about 20% of the inflation that we're seeing today is due to supply chain. About 20% of that is due to labor. About 20% of that is due to the energy. Now, those last two are governmental policy driven. But 40% of that is monetary policy and spending. We have been flooding the zone, which has caused that pressure to go upwards in so many areas, whether it's in cars, as my colleague down from Texas will tell you, or whether it's housing, whether it's groceries, whatever it might be. So we know that record inflation continues to impact lives of hardworking Americans. I'm going to quickly move through. I know there's a number of well-intentioned things that the other side has done, but it does throw fuel on the fire. University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index estimated that the American sentiment over the past 6 months is comparable to late 2008 and 2009, when the great financial crisis plunged our country into economic crisis. The impact of the COVID pandemic spared no one. Michigan alone, some 32% of businesses reported government-mandated shutdowns in 2020, and job recovery has been slow. Reckless spending, including more government investments and overregulation, will continue the current trajectory. But today we're talking about housing, so let's do that quickly. Michigan rental rates have increased 10.5%, outpacing the national average. Grand Rapids metropolitan area, the yearly change for a one-bedroom apartment is up 5%, while a two-bedroom is up 17%. Home sales are down 17% statewide. Average monthly payment on a $350 home in Zeeland, Michigan, will cost approximately $500 more than it did last year because of those interest rates. Gas prices in my hometown of Holland continue to be well above national average. It's real money for people. It's real money. And I think we can, Mr. Holtz-Eakin, we can agree that both monetary and fiscal policy will be key to delivering the elusive soft landing. I'm just not sure it's possible. Do you believe that we can even achieve a soft landing?
I think it's possible, but the historical record is very poor on that front. We've never had a soft landing when inflation's been above 4% and unemployment below 5%. That's where we find ourselves.
And Madam Chair, I appreciate the opportunity, and I blew up my staff's direction they wanted to go. But Mrs. Edie, I wanted you to know, you're heard. We hear you, and we appreciate you.
Well, thank you very much. And I hear you, and I see you, and the proof of the pudding is